Good pair here, and obviously both these heifers, this might be one of their first shows, maybe not taken out here to the surface very well, but to me, the red heifer that leads us off, I know she doesn't want to get out and stride, but her angle's really good off either end. But of the pair, I read this one to have more body shape and more dimension when you get him behind him, and yet for how powerful for this heifer calf she is, she's still very smooth about her shoulder. She balances really nicely from the side in terms of just her transition points up high into her upper loin and upper hip. Just a nice heifer here to lead us off. The one here in two is bigger at the surface in terms of her foot size and her bone work, and this is a neat heifer as well in terms of her kind. I like the front 2/3 of her body shape. She's deep and she's soft. Out of her hip, she gets a little off in terms of her loin and just her hip placement when the cattle are asked to go, but still, this is a good pair of Simmental heifer calves here. Let's go ahead and congratulate both these young ladies.
Your Class 1 winner goes to Lainey Sasser from Crescent 4-H. Second place goes to Sadie Plagg from Guthrie 4-H. Now we will have Class 2, Laramie Sasser.
Good single entry heifer here, and very bold, very powerful. I like the middle part of this one's body, her forerib back into her rear rib and flank. Dimensional when you get in behind her. Maybe could set her down just a little softer at the ground in terms of her pastern, but still a good kind of a heifer here that's good down her top line and certainly has some power to go along with it.
Winner of Class 2 goes to Laramie Sasser from Crescent 4-H. Now we will have Class 3, Laramie Sasser from Crescent 4-H.
Really a nice single entry heifer here, and I love her front end, her extension, and her neck. But from that point back, she's so good and maternal about her body shape and her sweep she takes back into her rear rib and flank. She's a square hip, square pin kind of a heifer that's really sound and smooth in terms of her joint work. Obviously, she's got a short switch here, but she still balances really nice. Her chest sits in her good. She's fresh all the way back into her lower body line. Just a really nice single entry heifer here to lead us off. Congratulations.
Winner of Class 3 goes to Laramie Sasser out of Crescent 4-H. Now we will have our Simmental heifer breed drive. Out of Class 1, Lainey Sasser. Class 2, Laramie Sasser. Class 3, Laramie Sasser.
Another good breed lineup here, and the youngest, the red heifer here out of Class 1, a neat heifer about just her balance, her look. For a heifer calf, she won that pair just over body shape and true power from behind. She's very dimensional and neat about her front end. Maybe could intensify her at the ground just a little, but that's being critical. That's a nice little heifer calf. The black fall heifer here, very powerful and probably one of the more powerful ones of the lineup in terms of her turn, her dimension, and through her body shape and out through her hip. With that, we could maybe relax her at the surface just a little plainer about her front end comparatively to the two in front of her, but that's still a very powerful kind of a heifer. And then the big bred we just discussed, so sound and functional, just defines maternal function out here of this lineup, of her body shape, her freshness up front, just a really, really nice heifer here. Good lineup of cattle here. Let's go ahead and congratulate these young ladies, and we'll get you a top end.
Your breed champion Simmental heifer goes to Laramie Sasser from Crescent 4-H out of Class 3. And reserve breed goes to Laney Sasser from Crescent 4-H out of Class 1. Now we will have our AOB heifers. Class 1, Reed Prosser, Cole Williams, and Eli Plagg.
Nice trio here, and the black heifer that's going to lead us off is the best balance from the side. I like this one. Her freshness, her femininity, her character up front. She's good and strong down her top line, and still balances good in terms of lower body. We could maybe loosen her up in terms of her skeleton when the cattle are going, but still a good kind of a heifer that has some quality from the profile. The youngest heifer out here is going to be in second, and I know she's given up some in terms of feature and bone work, but this is a nice little heifer calf that's really good about her front end. She's big in terms of her body shape. She just needs a little more time. She needs more time to grow in terms of just her substance and her feature, but still a good kind of a heifer. The red heifer that's going to be in 3 is stouter and more powerful than the one here in 2, and she is bigger at the surface in terms of her feature. I read her to be the plainest, just about the base of her shoulder and out through her hip design as well, but certainly a powerful kind of a heifer. Congratulations to all 3 of those exhibitors.
Winner of Class 1 goes to Eli Plagg. Second place goes to Reed Prosser from Crescent FFA. And third place goes to Cole Williams from Crescent FFA. Now we have Class 2, Emerson Poole, Briley Cook.
White heifer here is going to lead off this pair, and of the pair is just stouter. She's bolder in terms of her body shape and stouter out of her hip. She is a little plainer about her head, the crest of her neck, and down into the base of her chest. But from her shoulders back, this is a nice heifer in terms of body shape and just genuine power. The red heifer that's going to be in 2, really smooth made, a little neater about her front end quality up front, and yet from her out of her hip, she's really square and level. Just didn't have quite as much to her in terms of power, in terms of dimension and turn, but still a functional kind of a female that's very smooth from the profile.
Winner of Class 2 goes to Emerson Poole from Mulhall Orlando 4-H. Second place goes to Briley Cook from MO 4-H. Now we have Class 3, Emerson Poole.
Really a neat heifer here the young lady brings us. I like this one's hip design and her boldness of her center body shape up front. She's neat about her presence. She's long-necked and very smooth-shouldered. As you watch her come in, she's sure at the surface in terms of her feature and her foot size and balances and proportions with a lot of show ring and eye appeal from the profile. Just a really nice single entry here the young lady brings us.
Winner of Class 3 goes to Emerson Poole from Mulhall Orlando 4-H. Class 4, we have Reed Prosser, Josephine Major, and Lainey Sasser.
Good trio here, and the black heifer that leads us off. Within a top pair, this one is stouter and she's more dimensional. I really like this heifer's body shape. If you get on top of her and study the turn she has out of her spine, into her forerib, mid-body, back into her flank, she's still fresh in terms of her kind and good and level out of her hip. Maybe gets just a little pinch in her top line in motion, but again, she's still functional. She's still really good in terms of her body shape and power out of her hip. The white heifer that's going to be in two is very, very smooth from the profile. I love this one's body design, her chest in relation to her rear rib and flank. She's neat about her front end, and like I said, very smooth from shoulder all the way back out from behind. Needs a little more base width when you get right in behind her and get on top of her, but still a good functional kind of heifer to be there in two. The red heifer here in three, the young lady brings us very good in terms of her body shape. She's long and she's extended from the profile. Just gives up a little bit too much in terms of substance and dimension today, but still a nice heifer calf. Go ahead and put your hands together and congratulate those kids.
Winner of Class 4 goes to Lainey Sasser from Crescent 4-H. Second place goes to Reed Prosser from Crescent FFA. And third place goes to Josephine Major from MO 4-H. Now we have Class 5, Leighton McNair.
Really a nice Brahman heifer here, and one that's really good down her top line and very square out of her hip. Getting behind her, she's powerful, she's dimensional out of her hip as well, and still, I like her body shape. Her forerib back into her rear rib and flank. Would like to maybe square her up just a little bit when you get in front of her from the base of her knee to the surface, but still a good kind of a heifer here that's real good down her top line and still has a lot of power to offer.
Winner of Class 5 goes to Leighton McNair from Guthrie Crescent FFA. Class 6 is Allie Phillips.
A neat heifer here that's really neat about her front end, extremely long-necked and alert about her head and how it sits on her shoulder. Good in terms of her body shape as well. She's dimensional in her mid-body, back into her flank, very square out of her hip. Maybe could just intensify her at the surface and going right away from you, but still a good kind of a heifer that's really neat about her front end and big in terms of her body shape. Congratulations.
Winner of Class 6 goes to Allie Phillips from Mulhall Orlando FFA. Now we will have our AOB Heifer Breed Drive. From Class 1, Eli Plagg. Class 2, Emerson Poole. Class 3, Emerson Poole. Class 4, Lainey Sasser. Class 5, Leighton McNair. And Class 6, Allie Phillips.
biggest breed we've had so far, and we bring these 6 class winners out, a good set of heifers. The black heifer up front, really good in terms of balance and extension off either end. Her body shape reads good for just a little heifer calf. You know, relative to the lineup, we maybe could just loosen her up in terms of her skeleton in motion, but certainly like her extension and just her design. The heifer at a class 2, shoulders back, there's a lot of power in this heifer. Her middle part of her body shape all the way out through her hip, shoulders forward, has a little more chest, a little more shoulder, and just a little plainer, if you will, but shoulders back, again, very powerful, very dimensional. Heifer at a class 3, I love this one's head, her neck, and how it sits in her shoulder. Very good kind of a heifer in her transition from her shoulder all the way out through her hip. Sound structured female as well, maybe a little rounder out of her hip in terms of her pin placement, but still a good kind of a heifer that balances good and certainly covers the basics in terms of function. The black heifer here, powerful and big in terms of her body shape. She's long and she's very strong down her top line, and standing here in terms of balance, I like how sleek she is about her neck and her shoulder up high. You know, in motion, we get just a little pinched in terms of her top. Maybe doesn't balance up quite as nicely. But again, this is a good heifer in terms of body shape, power, freshness, and she still poses up from the profile with a lot of eye appeal and just look. The Brahman heifer that comes out here, obviously the different one, but there's still a lot of quality in this particular female. Out of the back of her shoulder, all the way out through her hip, really a powerful kind of a heifer. When you get in behind her, her pin set all the way down to her lower hip and stifle. Good-bodied kind of a heifer. Maybe doesn't have quite as much extension in through her neck and into the base of her shoulder there as a couple others, but I really do like this heifer in terms of length down her top line and squareness and stoutness from behind. And then the heifer out of the last class here, very sound structured. She's big in terms of her body shape and got a neat presence about her front end. Good down her top as well, standing there. Maybe in motion gets a little weaker behind her shoulder, maybe not quite as stout and powerful at the surface, but still a very good female just in terms of body shape and maternal function. Reaches and strides extremely good from the side. Again, a good lineup of cattle here. I'll take one more look at them. Go ahead and put your hands together for all of these kids.
Your breed champion. Your breed champion AOB heifer goes to Laney Sasser from Crescent 4-H out of Class 4. Your reserve breed goes to Allie Phillips from Mulhall Orlando FFA out of Class 6.
Good single entry heifer here, and a very powerful kind of a heifer out of her hip and her upper dimension, dimensional in terms of her center body as well. A little plainer, a little coarser about her kind, but still a good bodied heifer that certainly has a lot of power out from behind. Congratulations.
Your winner for Class 1 goes to Kaylee Blagden from Mulhall Orlando FFA. Now we have Class 2, Willie Schoonover from Mulhall Orlando FFA.
Really a sound structured kind of a heifer that's big at the surface in terms of her feature and her foot size, offers some length and extension from the profile as well, and still some power out of her hip. We could maybe soften her up just a little from forward back to flank, but still a sound structured, big footed kind of a heifer that has some real good shape and turn from behind. Congratulations.
Your Class 2 winner goes to Willie Schoonover from Mulhall Orlando FFA. Now we will have Class 3, Marion Stewart.
Really a nice balanced heifer here that wins this class. I like her front end, how her neck attaches to her shoulder, chest sits in her good. I like her lower body design too. At the standstill, she's good down her top line and square out of her hip. You know, in motion, maybe it gets just a little tighter in her top line, but that's being critical. This is a good feminine featured kind of a female that's very smooth in terms of her kind. Congrats.
Your Class 3 winner goes to Marion Stewart from Guthrie FFA. Now we will have our commercial heifer breed drive. From Class 1, Kaylee Blagden. Class 2, Willie Schoonover. Class 3, Marion Stewart.
Good division lineup here to close off our heifer show. Heifer out of the first class, very bold, a very powerful out of her hip, just a little coarser about her kind, but still a good, moderate, big-bodied, and powerful kind of a female. The one here out of Class 2 is sound structured and good at the surface in terms of her skeleton and her feature and her foot size, has some power and some extension to go along with it too. In a perfect world, we could maybe soften her up just a little bit from the side, but a very sound structured kind of a heifer that certainly has some power to go with it. And then the white heifer here gives you a really nice show ring look from the profile. She's long and she's extended up front and smooth about her shoulder all the way out to her hip. I like her presentation and her look about her body shape. Gets just a little pinched in her top line, but it doesn't cause a huge issue. Still a good kind of a female in terms of female quality up front, and still has some look. A good division here. I'll go show you our top three. Ringside, let's go ahead and congratulate these kids.
Your breed champion commercial heifer goes to Marion Stewart from Guthrie FFA out of Class 3. And your reserve breed goes to Willie Schoonover from Mulhall Orlando FFA out of Class 2. Now we will have our Grand Heifer Drive. Your grand champion Angus is Sadie Plagg. Hereford, Berkeley McKay. Shorthorn, Luke White. Limflex, Haley Drake. Maintainer, Berkeley McKay. Scimitar, Laramie Sasser. AOB, Laney Sasser. Commercial, Marion Stewart.
Well, it's been a really fun show, a heifer show here to work through, and I realize we got the steers yet. But hats off to you kids and you parents and all you ag teachers that have gotten these projects here. I think it's been a really nice show. Maybe not huge in terms of numbers, but honestly, the quality has been tremendously good, breed for breed, and I'm very pleased with what we have out here. I know that you guys maybe have districts or especially OIE gearing up for that, so best of luck to you guys as you get forward and go into the next month. These cattle look really, really nice. Again, this has been really fun. Thank you guys for having me out here. If maybe you're leaving after the heifer show, it's been a true honor. And I know that this area and that you guys are surrounded by good livestock people, and it certainly has shown so far. So ringside, let's go ahead and put your hands together for all these kids, getting these things here, getting them dialed in, and we'll get you top end here.
Your grand champion heifer goes to Berkeley McKay with her maintainer, class 4. Your from MO4H. Your reserve champion heifer goes to Haley Drake from Guthrie FFA with her Limb Flex heifer out of class 3. And your third overall heifer goes to Berkeley McKay from Mahal Orlando 4-H with her Hereford heifer out of class 4. We will be taking a 10-minute break in between the heifer and steer show. Okay, we will be starting off our steer show with Class 1 Angus with Taryn Simmons.
Good way to start us off on the steer show, the single entry Angus, and one that has some power when you get in behind him. He's dimensional in terms of his pin set and his lower stifle shape as well. He's a big back kind of a steer that has a good look in terms of length and extension from the side. Just a nice way here to get us started. Congratulations to this young lady.
Class 1 winner goes to Taryn Simmons from Guthrie F4H. In Class 2, we have Briley Hammond.
Really a nice single entry here. Angus steer that's really good in terms of just the center part of his body shape. He's got some muscle. He's got some dimension. He looks like a show steer from the side in terms of his extension out of his front end, his feature and substance at the surface as well. Just a good calf here for this young lady. Congrats.
Your Class 2 winner goes to Briley Harmon from Mulhall, Orlando, FFA. Now we will have our Angus Breed Drive from Class 1, Taryn Simmons, Class 2, Briley Harmon.
Good Angus division drive. The steer out of the first class certainly has some power, some dimension from behind, and he's good in the shape he has out of the back of his shoulder. Relative to this pair, just a little plainer about his head in through his shoulder. Not as neat from the profile, but certainly a stout-made kind of a steer. And then the one out of class 2 gives you that look. He's very balanced. He's good about his neck design and into his shoulder. He has some shape under his hair when you study him up high and from behind. Good about his body shape. A nice pair of Angus cattle here. Our champion's going to be the young lady out of Class 2. Our reserve will be the young lady out of Class 1. Congratulations.
Your breed champion Angus steer goes to Briley Harmon from Mulhall, Orlando, FFA out of Class 2. And your reserve breed goes to Taryn Simmons from Guthrie 4H out of Class 1. Now we will start off our Hereford breed with Class 1, Cole Williams and Luke White.
a pair of Hereford steers here in our breed drive as well, and the young man steer here in front of me is going to lead us off of the pair. He's a bigger bodied steer that's softer and more practical, back into his flank, get on top of him and from behind. This steer for Hereford has some shape out of his pin set to his lower quarter and stifle. He still has that show ring look about his front end, his head and his neck and his shoulder. As you watched him come in, he's still sound structured. That's a nice calf here to lead us off. Our second in reserve in this particular breed is maybe just a little longer, more extended from the profile than our division winner, out of his hip and his front end. He's got some shape up high. He needs to be a little softer, a little more practical. It has a little more finish back over his last rib and into his flank, but certainly a good steer with some extra length and extension from the profile.
Your breed champion Hereford steer goes to Luke White from Guthrie FFA, and your reserve breed goes to Cole Williams from Crescent FFA. Now we will start off our shorthorn breed with Class 1 Haley Tidwell.
Single entry shorthorn steer here, very long from the profile, extended about his front end and smooth about his shoulder. He's got some body shape if you get on him and study his full rib, mid body, all the way back. And this steer is still really square from his hooks to his pins from the side. Could withstand just a little more muscle shape up high, but still a good kind of a steer that's very smooth and good about his body shape.
Your Class 1 winner goes to Haley Tidwell from Guthrie FFA. In Class 2, we have Luke White.
Really a big-bodied, soft and big-bodied steer here that leads us off in this particular class. He's squaring his edges up high out of his shoulder into his upper hip and lower stifle as well. Got a good hip and hind leg, maybe a little straighter and a little out in terms of his shoulder up front, but still a good kind of a shorthorn steer to win this second class.
Your Class 2 winner goes to Luke White from Guthrie FFA. Now we will have our Shorthorn Breed Drive from Class 1, Haley Tidwell, Class 2, Luke White.
Good pair of them here for our Shorthorn Drive, and maybe some differences between them. The calf out of the first class, very long and very extended, needs a little more body shape and needs a little more power, but certainly smooth and extended. And then the calf we just discussed, he's the bigger bodied calf of the pair that has some muscle shape up high and from behind. Like I mentioned, maybe relax some of the angle to his shoulder, but still a good steer. To me, he's my favorite of the pair. He'll be champion. Steer up front will be reserved. Congratulations.
Your Shorthorn Breed Champion goes to Luke White from Guthrie FFA out of Class 2, and Reserve Breed goes to Haley Tidwell from Guthrie FFA out of Class 1. Now we will move on to our Cross Breed, Class 1, Kaysen Larman, Class 2. Second in that class is Kate Williams.
Good pair here, and the stocked-legged steer just has more muscle shape. He's more dimensional in behind his blade. He feeds back into a bigger and stouter upper hip and lower quarter and stifle. Maybe not as big at the surface as the steer in 2. Would like to maybe intensify him there, but this is still a good steer that certainly has some muscle. The black steer is a little bigger footed. He has some more substance of bone and feature underneath of him, and he's a long-sided calf as well. I just wish he had a little more muscle, a little more tone up high and from behind.
Your Class 1 winner goes to Kaysen Larman from Mulhall Orlando FFA. Second place goes to Kate Williams from Crescent FFA. In Class 2, we will have Leighton McNair, Tate Simmons, and Reed Prosser.
Really a good trio of steers here, and the white-legged steer that leads us off, he, to me, is the soundest structured and the best skeleton steer of the three, but more importantly, get in behind him and get on top of him. He still has muscle shape. He's still a dimensional steer out of his hip and his stifle. He's real stout in terms of his forearm and his width of chest and how it matches all the way back out throughout. He maybe has just a little more shoulder. He's not as neat fronted as the steer that's going to be in two, but to me, he's real good in terms of his top line and his loin and how it sits in him, and still real sound at the surface. The black steer that's going to be here in two, like I said, it's a little neater about his head and his neck and his presence from the side profile. When the young man gets him stopped, he gives you a really, really nice look. He's big-bodied and really dimensional out of his hip. We got to make him a little more comfortable in motion in terms of his loin and his top line. Just doesn't reach and go quite as comfortably at the surface either as our class leader, but he's a stout, wide-made steer. It still gives you a good look about his front end. The orange steer here that's going to be in third is the most extended one of the trio. He's long out of his neck, he's long down his spine and out through his hip, and he balances relatively good at the standstill. In motion, he wants to get a little cut up in his flank. I didn't read him to have quite as much just genuine muscle shape or punch and power when he got right on top of him, but that's still a good, fresh-haired kind of a steer that gives you a good, long, and extended look. A good trio there. Go ahead and congratulate those kids.
Your Class 2 winner goes to Tate Simmons from Guthrie FFA. Second place goes to Reed Prosser out of Crescent FFA. And third place goes to Leighton McNair from Crescent FFA. Now we will have Class 3, Briley Harmon, Denver McKay, Kaysen Larman.
Another good trio, and the black calf that's going to lead us off, he owns the skeleton advantage. He's the soundest in terms of his hip and his hind leg. This is a really square-made steer. If you get on top of him and study him out of his shoulder into his loin and from behind, he's the biggest hipped, biggest pin steer that still gives you a really nice look. He's the long-necked calf that ties it in good at the top of his shoulder. Just a nice steer here to lead us off. The orange steer, the yellow steer here that's going to be in two, really big at the surface in terms of his feature and his foot size. He's a long extended steer, and he too has plenty of muscle when you get on top of him. From the side and in motion, he's a little straighter in the angle to his shoulder, a little plainer from that point forward. I didn't read him to be quite as comfortable in terms of his just movement and skeleton as our class leader. Good steer though in terms of length, extension, and still having some muscle. The roan steer here that's going to be in three, probably the longest, most extended steer of the set, out of his front end and out of his hip. We just got to make him a little more comfortable when the cattle are asked to lead, a little more muscle shape up high, but certainly a deep-bodied calf that's long and extended from the profile.
Your Class 3 winner goes to Denver McKay out of Mahal Orlando FFA. Second place goes to Briley Harmon out of Mulhall Orlando FFA. And third goes to Kason Larman out of Mulhall FFA. Now we will have Class 4, Denver McKay, Camden McKay, and Kaylin Cox.
Another good trio here in the black and white steer that's going to lead us off. Really a good calf in terms of balance and how his chest sits in him in relation to his flank. He's good in terms of his body shape as well. If you get on top of him and the turn he has out of his shoulder and drops down into his lower body, he's got an awesome hip and hind leg on him that still reads and works extremely good. He's stout in terms of his lower stifle. And like I said, he looks like a show steer from the side. This black steer that's going to be in too, obviously he's the unclipped one, but if you get on top of him and study him down his top and out of his hip, he's probably got as much muscle as anything in here. And the shape and the squareness he feeds out of his shoulder into his lower hip and stifle as well. Relative to our class winner, maybe not as good in terms of his hip and his hind leg, maybe not as soft back into his flank yet, but this is still a good steer that's good about his neck and his shoulder, really a lot of muscle shape when you study him under his hair. The orange steer that's going to be in 3, he balances really nicely from the profile. His extension up front's good. He's got a soft hip and hind leg that sets at the surface. And he actually, when you get up on him, that's a stout made steer out of his hip. I wish he was softer in terms of his back into his lower rear rib and flank. I didn't read him to have quite as much genuine just dimension when up front or out of his shoulder as the calf in 2. Still, though, a good steer. This is the highest quality class through and through that we've seen. Go ahead and congratulate those kids.
Your Class 4 winner goes to Camden McKay from Mulhall Orlando 4-H. Second place goes to Denver McKay, Mulhall Orlando FFA. Third place goes to Kaylin Cox, Crescent FFA. Now we will have our cross breed drive. Out of Class 1, Kason Larman. Class 2, Tate Simmons. Class 3, Denver McKay. Class 4, Camden McKay.
Good crossbred lineup here. The calf out of the first class won that pair because he was stout and he's powerful and has some muscle. Out here in the mix, maybe just a little off in terms of his balance, his lower body balance, but that steer still has plenty of muscle up high and from behind. The white-footed steer that came out of class 2, I like this one, especially standing still. His hip design, his hip length, he's a big hip kind of a steer as well that's bold in terms of his body shape, a little plainer about his head and his neck and his chest there, and gets just a little pinched in his top line when we throw him into the mix and ask him to go. But that's still a good steer. That's good about his hip, his stoutness, and his power. Real good in terms of his body shape and presentation. The calf out of class 3 has got some unique pieces about him. He's really neat about his presence up front, his alertness about his head and his neck, into a really stout and wide chest floor and forearm, which is really relates back into his hip. He's big in terms of his pin placement all the way down into his lower stifle. Good in terms of his body, maybe gets a little off in his top line at times, right behind his shoulder, but that's still a stout made steer that really ties a long neck high on the top side of his shoulder. And then the black and white steer that we just discussed, huge at the surface in terms of his feature and his foot size. Got an awesome hip and hind leg on this one. He's real good in terms of his body shape for being a heavyweight. His chest is still stayed in him good, and he has some shape and dimension up high and from behind. Really a good lineup here. I'll get you a top end. Why don't you go ahead, ringside. Let's congratulate these crossbred exhibitors. Again, congratulations.
Just a quick announcement for all the pig showmen. The weigh-ins start at 3. It was a random selection for the order. Crescent will be weigh-in first, then Maha Orlando, then Coyle, then Guthrie. This will start at 3 o'clock with Crescent Pig weigh-ins. Your crossbreed champion goes to Camden McKay from Mulhall Orlando 4-H out of Class 4. And your reserve breed goes to Denver McKay out of Mulhall Orlando FFA Class 3. Also, all breed champions need to go to Giovanna after the conclusion of the show. Now we'll be showing for our steer drive. For your Angus breed, Briley Harmon, Hereford, Luke White, Shorthorn, Luke White, Cross, Camden McKay.
Well, it's been a really fun afternoon to work through these kids and work through the cattle. And thank you guys again for asking me to come out here. The depth and quality has been really, really fun and exciting, both in the heifer show and the steers here as well. So good luck to you guys moving down the road. Maybe this is their end point, or maybe the district, or as you get them ready for OIE, good luck. It'll be here before you know it. So again, the kids have been very, very good to work with, very polite, which means a lot to me and makes my job certainly enjoyable. So again, thank you guys. Good job to you kids. Ringside, let's go ahead and put your hands together here for these kids and their hard work, and we'll get you a champion and reserve steer.
Your grand champion steer goes to Camden McKay out of the crossbreed Class 4 MO 4H. Reserve goes to Denver McKay out of MO FFA with his cross out of Class 3. And third overall goes to Tate Simmons from Guthrie FFA cross out of Class 2. We'll have a 10-minute break and then we will start showmanship. We will start with Pee Wee showmanship. Our showmanship order will go Pee Wee, Senior, Intermediate, then Junior. Our age divisions for showmanship will be shown together. There will not be multiple classes for senior or intermediate. It'll just be one big class. Our Pee Wee showmanship, we have Pearson Plagg, Larrett Sasser, Drake Thompson, Cleo Rogers, and Emma Majors.
Really fun set of Pee Wee showmen out here, and went around and talked to them. A lot of them, this is maybe their first time out here in the ring, but they're certainly having a good time, and I'm very thankful that I do not have to place them because they're all winners here. So let's go ahead and make some noise for these kids and congratulate them on coming out here and doing Pee Wee showmanship.
Congrats to all of our Pee Wee showmen. You will all be going home with a blue ribbon. For our senior showmanship, we have Kaylee Blagden, For our senior showmanship, it'll be one class. So it will be Kaylee Blagden, Dagan Poole, Britt Drake, Haley Tidwell, Briley Harmon, Willie Schoonover, Kason Larman, Eli Plagg, Marion Stewart, Kaylin Cox, and Haley Drake.
Well, really great job by all these senior showmen out here, and little things that are going to sort them, but I think all of these kids doing a tremendously good job in terms of eye contact, remaining calm. I know these cattle have probably been up for a while, but these kids are doing the best that they can and showing me their best angles and still remaining calm with their stick and making sure feet placement's good. There's some little differences, just some style things that are going to separate these top three, but again, a great job by all these senior showmanship, and good job putting in the hours at home and the time and the effort to getting these things dialed in. Again, congratulations. I'll select our champion, reserve, and third overall in that order. Ringside, let's go ahead and congratulate all these senior showmen.
Your champion senior showman goes to Haley Drake from Guthrie FFA. Reserve is Briley Harmon from Mulhall Orlando FFA. And your third overall goes to Britton Drake from Guthrie FFA. In our intermediate showmanship, we have Emerson Poole, Tate Simmons, Laney Sasser, Laramie Sasser, Cole Williams, Briley Cook, Kate Williams, Leighton McNair, Allison Cook, Reed Prosser, and Allie Phillips.
Really a tough heat of intermediate showmen, and probably just a little deeper within this particular division than perhaps even the seniors. All these kids are doing a really, really good job. Eye contact is very, very good. Little things that, again, I've seen these kids show all day, kind of notice their styles, but again, there's just little things that are maybe going to separate our top three here. But one thing maybe to work on is just make sure your calf is set up at all times, whether you got to maybe just take a little bit of extra time and make sure that they're giving me the best look that they possibly can. But again, kids, a really, really good job out here in this intermediate showman. Again, I'm going to do it the same way we did seniors, pick you a champion, reserve, and third overall in that order. Let's go ahead and congratulate these kids on their hard work.
Your champion intermediate showman goes to Laramie Sasser. Reserve goes to Emerson Poole. And third goes to Laney Sasser. For our junior showmanship, we have Sadie Plagg, Paxton Mallory, Taryn Simmons, Sean Farrell, and Kinley Rader.
really a great set of junior showmen out here. And these kids, obviously they're young, but this is my favorite division here to work through, just because this is where they all start and kind of gain their love for the sport, if you will, and going forward. And all these kids are doing a great job keeping control of these heifers or their steers out here. Maybe some little things, eye contact, and just making sure your calf is set up at all times. But again, they're just getting started. I think these kids are doing a great job. Once again, thank you guys for having me out here. We've had great ring help, great staff, great everything, getting everything worked through very smoothly today. So again, thank you guys for having me. I'll do the same exact order that we've been doing, picking our champion through third. One more time, let's give these kids a big round of applause for this junior showmanship.
Our grand champion junior showman goes to Sadie Plagg from Guthrie 4-H. Reserve goes to Paxton Mallory from Guthrie 4-H. And third goes to Taryn Simmons from Guthrie 4-H. Again, we would like to thank Kendall Reisenstein for coming and judging our cattle today. We appreciate you making the drive.